name is Jeff Garmany, and I'm in the Department of Geography and the King's Brazil Institute, and I'm also part of the Urban Futures Collective. My research interests sort of intersect several different paradigms of geography. On the one hand, there's urban geography and work that I've done in urban development and questions of governance, particularly in Brazil. There's also political geography, which I'm heavily involved with, that looks at questions of state theory, again, of governance, questions of informality and state presence. And then there's also questions of critical development that, again, have been important to my work over the years. Again, looking specifically at different ways that development happens and the effects of development in countries like Brazil. I have a long ongoing project in Rio de Janeiro. It looks at questions of social housing, particularly in the center of the city. And what we're trying to do is understand how low-income people stay put and or are pushed out of central urban areas like Rio de Janeiro that confront, just like London, increasing costs of living and increasing difficulties for lower income people. So we're studying different sorts of social housing strategies. Some of these include sort of state-led housing projects. Some of these include very sort of grassroots social movement-led collectives, and the ways that people are working to stay put in central urban areas. This project actually brings together a really large research team, many of whom are Brazilians. Some of them are social activists, some of them are anthropologists, some of them are urban architecture specialists, some of them are also American anthropologists, and we even have a Canadian filmographer on the project. So it's a really big group, and it sort of extends across several years, and specifically it draws on ethnography to really understand the ways that people are engaging with social housing, sorts of the different interactions and the changes this is producing with respect to social class, gender, race, and even political identity. So there's a number of different themes that intersect this project, and it will continue actually till at least 2020. So how do I see the future of urban studies, so to speak, or the future of urbanity? I certainly hope that what we'll begin to see in the future here is more learning from and more engagement with urban development and questions of urban development in countries in what are typically called the global periphery. Historically, I think theories of urbanization, understandings of urbanization, what we really call the urban, has always been centered in Europe and in North America. And in my own work, I constantly confront these sorts of issues with respect to how are debates over urbanization adapted to the global south, rather than how are the ways that we understand urbanization in the first instance actually informed by what's happening in countries like Brazil. So this means I'm very interested in post-colonial critiques that are being made right now in urban studies. I'm very interested in critiques by feminist geographers and by anthropologists and critical development specialists about the ways that urbanization happens in the global south, and the way that this challenges how we understand urbanization and urban development more generally. And I'm also really interested in questions of informality. I think this is something that will really drive urban studies in the future, the ways that researchers are forced in a certain sense to engage with the question of informality, and the way that informality intersects urban development in all sorts of ways. And by this I mean whether or not, how urban informality exists materially, but also the effects of urban informality more generally, and the ways that it drives questions of state governance or development or politics more generally.